What the study found. The study looked at 40 different outcomes, but reported data for children with lesbian mothers and those with gay fathers separately. Therefore, there actually were 80 outcome measures that could be said to compare children with homosexual parents to those from other family structures. When compared with outcomes for children raised by an intact biological family, with a married, biological mother and father, the children of homosexuals did worse, or, in the case of their own sexual orientation, were more likely to deviate from the societal norm, on 77 out of 80 outcome measures. The only exceptions: children of gay fathers were more likely to vote, children of lesbians used alcohol less frequently, and children of gay fathers used alcohol at the same rate as those in intact biological families. Of course, anyone who has had a college course in statistics knows that when a survey shows there are differences between two groups, it is important to test whether that finding is statistically significant. This is because it is always possible, by chance, that a sample may not accurately reflect the overall population on a particular point. However, through statistical analysis, researchers can calculate the likelihood of this, and when they have a high level of confidence that a difference identified in the survey represents an actual difference in the national population, we say that finding is statistically significant. This does not mean the other findings are unimportant, just that we cannot have as high a level of confidence in them. Regnerus has analyzed his findings, and their statistical significance, in two ways. First, by a simple and direct comparison between what is reported by the children of homosexual parents and the children of intact biological families, IBFs, and second by controlling for a variety of other characteristics. Controlling for income, for example, would mean showing that IBF children do not do better just because their married parents have higher incomes, but that they do better even when the incomes of their households and the households of homosexual parents are the same. Again, Regnerus has done these comparisons for LMs, children of lesbian mothers, and GFs, children of gay fathers, separately. There are 8 outcome variables where differences between the children of homosexual parents and married parents were not only present, and favorable to the married parents, but where these findings were statistically significant for both children of lesbian mothers and gay fathers, and both with and without controls. While all the findings in the study are important, these are the strongest possible ones, virtually irrefutable. Compared with children raised by their married biological parents, IBF, children of homosexual parents, LM and GF, are much more likely to have received welfare, IBF 17%, LM 69%, GF 57%. Have lower educational attainment. Report less safety and security in their family of origin. Report more ongoing negative impact from their family of origin. Are more likely to suffer from depression. Have been arrested more often. If they are female, have had more sexual partners, both male and female. The high mathematical standard of statistical significance was more difficult to reach for the children of gay fathers in this study because there were fewer of them. The following, however, are some additional areas in which the children of lesbian mothers, who represented 71% of all the children with homosexual parents in this study, differed from the IBF children, in ways that were statistically significant in both a direct comparison and with controls. Children of lesbian mothers are more likely to be currently cohabiting. Are almost 4 times more likely to be currently on public assistance. Are less likely to be currently employed full-time. Are more than 3 times more likely to be unemployed. Are nearly 4 times more likely to identify as something other than entirely heterosexual. Are 3 times as likely to have had an affair while married or cohabiting. Are an astonishing 10 times more likely to have been touched sexually by a parent or other adult caregiver. Are nearly 4 times as likely to have been physically forced to have sex against their will. Are more likely to have attachment problems related to the ability to depend on others. Use marijuana more frequently. Smoke more frequently. Watch TV for long periods more frequently. have more often pled guilty to a non-minor offense. Differences in sexuality. When comparing children of homosexuals with children of married biological parents, the differences in sexuality, experiences of sexual abuse, number of sexual partners, and homosexual feelings and experiences among the children themselves were among the most striking. While not all of the findings mentioned below have the same level of statistical significance as those mentioned above, they remain important. At one time, defenders of homosexual parents not only argued that their children do fine on psychological and developmental measures, but they also said that children of homosexuals are no more likely to be gay than children of heterosexuals. That claim will be impossible to maintain in light of this study. It found that children of homosexual fathers are nearly 3 times as likely, and children of lesbian mothers are nearly 4 times as likely, to identify as something other than entirely heterosexual. Children of lesbian mothers are 75% more likely, and children of homosexual fathers are 3 times more likely, to be currently in a same-sex romantic relationship. The same holds true with the number of sexual partners. Both males and females who were raised by both lesbian mothers and homosexual fathers have more opposite-sex, heterosexual, partners than children of married biological parents. Daughters of homosexual fathers had twice as many. But the differences in homosexual conduct are even greater. The daughters of lesbians have 4 times as many female, that is, same-sex, sexual partners than the daughters of married biological parents, and the daughters of homosexual fathers have 6 times as many. Meanwhile, the sons of both lesbian mothers and homosexual fathers have 7 times as many male, same-sex, sexual partners as sons of married biological parents. The most shocking and troubling outcomes, however, are those related to sexual abuse. Children raised by a lesbian mother were 10 times more likely to have been touched sexually by a parent or other adult caregiver. 23% reported this, versus only 2% for children of married biological parents, while those raised by a homosexual father were 3 times more likely, reported by 6%. In his text, but not in his charts, Regnerus breaks out these figures for only female victims, and the ratios remain similar: 3% IBF, 31% LM, 10% GF. As to the question of whether you have ever been physically forced to have sex against your will, not necessarily in childhood, affirmative answers came from 8% of children of married biological parents, 31% of children of lesbian mothers, nearly 4 times as many, and 25% of the children of homosexual fathers, 3 times as many. Again, when Regnerus breaks these figures out for females, who are more likely to be victims of sexual abuse in general, such abuse was reported by 14% of IBFs, but 3 times as many of the LMs, 46%, and GFs, 52%. These data require more detailed exploration and explanation. A number of researchers have pointed out that self-identified homosexual adults, both men and women, are more likely to report having been victims of child sexual abuse. However, Family Research Council and other pro-family organizations have been criticized for also pointing to evidence suggesting that homosexual men are more likely to commit acts of child sexual abuse than are heterosexual men. And experts in child sexual abuse in general say that men are most often the perpetrators, regardless of the sex of the victim. Therefore, the finding that children of lesbian mothers are significantly more likely to have been victims of sexual touching by a parent or adult caregiver than even the children of homosexual fathers is counterintuitive. However, it is important to note what we do not know about such experiences from the data that have been published. The fact that a child of a lesbian mother was touched by a parent or adult caregiver does not mean that the lesbian mother was herself the parent or caregiver who did the touching. An alternative scenario mentioned by Regnerus, for example hypothetical, but plausible, is one in which a child is molested by her biological father, her mother divorces her father, and the mother later enters into a lesbian relationship. Limitations of the study. While the Regnerus study is a vast improvement over virtually all the prior research in the field, it still leaves much to study and learn about homosexual parents and their effect on children. Author Mark Regnerus emphasizes the traditional caveat in social science, warning against leaping to conclusions regarding causality. In other words, just because there are statistical correlations between having a homosexual parent and experiencing negative outcomes does not automatically prove that having a homosexual parent is what caused the negative outcomes. Other factors could be at work. This is true in a strict scientific sense, but because Regnerus carefully controlled for so many other factors in the social environment, the study gives a clear indication that it is this parental characteristic which best defines the household environment that produces these troubling outcomes. The large number of significant negative outcomes in this study gives legitimate reason for concern about the consequences of homosexual parenting. The definition of what it means to have a homosexual parent is also a loose one in this study by necessity, in order to maximize the sample size of homosexual parents. Not all of those who reported that a parent was in a same-sex relationship even lived with that parent during the relationship. Many who did not live with the partner as well. Only 23% of those with a lesbian mother, and only 2% of those with a homosexual father, had spent as long as 3 years living in a household with the homosexual parent and the parent's partner at the same time. Details like this involving the actual timeline of these children's lives can reportedly be found in Regnerus' dataset, which is to be made available to other researchers later this year. Figures like these suggest a need for more research, to distinguish, for example, the effects of living with a homosexual parent from having a non-custodial one, or the effects of living with a homosexual single parent versus a homosexual couple. But they also point out something of note for public policy debates on gay families: the stereotype put forward by pro-homosexual activists, of a same-sex couple jointly parenting a child from birth, following either adoption or the use of artificial reproductive technology, represents a scenario that is extraordinarily rare in real life. Most homosexual parents have their own biological children who were conceived in the context of a previous heterosexual relationship or marriage, which then ended before the person entered into homosexual relationships. Conclusion. The articles by Marks and Regnerus have completely changed the playing field for debates about homosexual parents, gay families, and same-sex marriage. The myths that children of homosexual parents are no different from other children and suffer no harm from being raised by homosexual parents have been shattered forever.